various media platforms. As the Bemba saying goes, Insofu, ngana ifwa mumushi, idi ashidi vapo, yansofu. As you know, I'm never alone in the studio. I'm always with Mr. Prince Chanda, known as the Hardliner. Welcome to the program, sir.
Good evening, thanks, welcome.
Good evening. So today we've got three topics we are discussing. The withdrawal of donor aid to Zambia by the American government. And then we also have political alliances in Zambia. We are also discussing voter registration in Zambia. So we are starting with the cut of donor aid to Zambia. I'm sure maybe some of the people are not aware that the donor aid has been cut to Zambia, reason being that the drugs were being misused by the Zambian government. Mr. Prince, what do you say about the cut of donor aid to Zambia by the American government?
First of all, the drugs are being stolen by government officials who are selling them instead of giving them to the patients for free. So what do I think about the cutting of the donor aid? In the first place, I've been privileged before to work under a program that is funded by USAID.
Okay.
I'm one person that does not believe that we must continue receiving aid on important issues that affect the lives of our people and they are healthy. So when you talk about the issue of cutting aid to Zambia by the United States of America, I will take you back. I'll give you a background that should make you understand why I don't think that should be even something we should be talking about or crying about. I saw the crocodile tears by that ambassador when he was delivering the message that he was delivering. Why do I call it crocodile tears? It's because, of course, he should be aware and he should be concerned that when he goes back to America, he's going to face a committee of the Senate, because in America, the taxpayers don't joke. You can be an ambassador, a friend of a president of a country, or a president of America being a friend of a president of another country, but the taxpayers don't joke with the monies that they assist African countries. So for me, that was crocodile tears. Why do I say so? That ambassador said that they have been investigating the issues, and they gave the report to the government of the Republic of Zambia, which was not being acted upon.
Okay.
The reason why it is like that is because the American government saw this government as its friends. That is the reason why they were taking a very, very reluctant approach to deal with a matter that should have been done swiftly and be put in public domain so that people can react to such assertion or criminality that was being perpetrated. But because they consider this regime as their own making, they are trying to be diplomatic about a very serious matter. So coming to that point where he says he's doing this because they have not been taking the matter serious, it is just something that is trying to use as an excuse. Yes, we do not tolerate government allowing its officers to steal drugs that are given for free by those that wants to help us and selling them to the people. That is criminal. That criminality is what should be pursued than pursuing what this chap YME is saying, what the other person is saying on TikTok. That should not preoccupy government institutions. They should be concerned about what is being said that is affecting the people that are dying every day. Under the MMD government, Ministry of Health, as usual, misappropriated funds and misapplied funds that came from the donors. But those donors were very objective and they were very assertive and straightforward with their monies and how they wanted that matter to be pursued. We saw a lot of people arrested under Ministry of Health. At a time, the one that was in charge of human resource was arrested. That person is still serving a sentence, 18 years in prison, because donor funds were misappropriated by the Ministry of Health, and it was misapplied. So the stance that took those donors, that's a stance we would have expected the Americans to take in this situation where it involves them. But because they see this regime as their own making, they were trying to be diplomatic. Now they can never be diplomatic because they have a new president in Washington, D.C., who is Donald Trump, who has made it very clear that is not going to be funding African countries. They must stand on their own. That should be a wake-up call for governments to ensure that they begin to take responsibility on the services that they are supposed to provide to the people. The responsibility of government is to ensure that the policies that they come with when they form government are implemented by the civil servants. Now, if the same civil servants who are supposed to implement their policies are working against their policies, why should they be reluctant to arrest them and put them to task? It is because they feel ashamed. They are good at calling other people being thieves. This issue of drugs has been happening for a very long time, but there is precedency where a donor fund is misappropriated and people are punished accordingly. But this regime is very reluctant to touch those who are stealing under its nose. And when you talk about the cutting of donor funds, should we be crying as Zambians? No.
Yes, yes.
The monies that are being misappropriated in this country is enough to deal with that aspect of drugs. I worked under a program that was funded by USAID. This is what happens under those projects. USAID doesn't give you money that is been given to your project to sit in your local account. When they say they have given you $2 million, that money remains in America. The primary funder will be USAID, but the organization that is being funded will be given conditions. If they say there is this much in administration, where you need to buy cars and pay salaries, you cannot put a sticker of USAID on a Japanese second-hand vehicle. Even if they have given you the money, they'll give you a condition. You have to buy a brand new vehicle from American companies. So you have to buy Ford or any other American made car. So that money doesn't come. So even when they tell you to say they have given you this much, it doesn't come to your country. It remains there. The only it is what comes for administration. When it comes to operations, I've worked for NGO that was being funded by USAID. What I noticed and what I queried every day, I fought battles with those that were presiding over the organization. Why? Because I looked at a situation where the project proposal that was written had things that must be provided for by those that were on the program, the orphans and vulnerable children. But according to the US program at that time, they were more interested in research. How many people are HIV positive in Zambia? How many people are vulnerable due to HIV and AIDS? It's all a research, wanting to know statistically how many people are affected by HIV, how many people are dying of HIV. Nothing for the well-being of those people that are on programs. So what should be the way forward? The way forward should be government must become responsible. They must stop looting the monies and spending it to useless things or sending it out of the country by those officials that are doing that. They must go back to the drawing board, get those records of people that need those drugs and look at where they can buy those drugs. Zambia cannot be insulted for 1.4 billion. That is the money that can easily be generated from the resources and the mineral resources that we have. So for me, that insult I cannot accept as a patriotic citizen of this country. We should not even be proud and be crying that, no, the Americans have removed their donor fund. Now people are going to be dying. No, the people that are sick and all of us who are affected must hold this government accountable to ensure that instead of compensating people illegally or wrongly, they must use those funds to try and buy drugs and ensure that the people that are affected are helped and taken care of. It's something that can be done so easily. First of all, these donor funds that we receive, some of them, they do wrong things in our communities. And because government always are sleeping when it comes to donor aid and donor-funded programs, you would be a very sad person if you were to work for this organization and you see really what goes on the ground. If I was to advise government to deal with this matter, I would ask them through community development to call for all the project proposals that have been funded by donors and then ensure that they cross-check what are the objectives of those projects that were funded. What are they doing in our communities? How much are they funded? Who is funding them? It's easy when they do that. They can easily say, okay, fine, this funding that you are getting, government is going to step in and begin to fund you. Because when government begins to do that, you will not be insulted for the amount of money that you can easily generate as a country and ensure you stiffen the rules so that no one will be able to steal drugs from the government that has been supposed to be given for free. I've been in instances where I go to a hospital, I'm given a prescription. The doctor that is giving you, the person that's giving you a prescription is recommending a drugstore that is maybe in Chilanga. You are at UTH, and somebody writes a prescription and tells you where you can find that drug, in Chilanga. What does that say? All these pharmaceuticals in town, or pharmacists in town, around UTH, everywhere, somebody chooses to give you a prescription and tell you, I think this drug, you can find it at that particular pharmacy. That means those are the pharmacies that some of these people have interest in. This problem has been there for a long time. But when this government was coming into power, they made it very clear that the things that were existing that affected the patients in the hospitals will not happen going forward. Now, under their nose, they have lost funding. They must be responsible and hold accountable those that will be found wanting. They must not concentrate on pursuing opposition political parties for things that don't make sense. Frivolous charges, frivolous issues that they are giving them when real things are happening and affecting the people. They must be very responsible and do what needs to be done.
Just adding on to what you have said concerning the drugs, again, NEMA, you find that you're on NEMA, you go and request to be given drugs by the pharmacist, by the farmers that give drugs to NEMA affiliated, credited hospitals. You find that they don't have the drugs again. And then you've been cut, you contribute monthly towards the NEMA, which is, it is quite unfair for the Zambian people.
Yeah, you're right. Patriotic Front meant well when they started NEMA under Dr. Chirofya. They meant well. For everything that PF did, despite their shortcomings, they meant well for this country. It was a group of patriots that really wanted to do what was necessary. That's why it breaks my heart to realize that a government that was formed, when everything was in place, there are few things that the UPND government needed to do to ensure that they continued on where the Patriotic Front left. The NEMA issue is a sad story. There are too many people that are contributing every day, but they are discovering that they cannot find those drugs from the hospitals that are NEMA accredited. That is a sad story, and government itself must wake up and begin to understand that the intentions of the Patriotic Front when they introduced NEMA was to help the people that cannot afford to be given a treatment when they get at a certain point of need. Because there are times when it's easy to go to a hospital, government hospital, they treat you, they give you this malaria drug, maybe they give you Panadol and everything else. But at a certain level, when you are dealing with a complicated matter, it becomes very expensive. So NEMA was coming in to question that. So they just have to be responsible and be able to do what is necessary to ensure that our people are safe. But I very much doubt, because this government is preoccupied with the returning power, winning elections. So everything that is happening at this particular time cannot make sense to them. That's why they can make pronouncements. No, we're going to arrest. They are good at making cheap threats. You do not make threats when you are government. You act upon things that are put before you. Now, when you see a government making threats that don't reach them anywhere, they are seeking to pursue citizens that are criticizing them and sharing screenshots of the lies that they told. They want to criminalize them. When you have a government that wants to keep the government systems busy pursuing nonsense, then you should worry as a citizen. Because TikTok, every day, people are getting on TikTok. Every day, someone is getting a smartphone to be on TikTok. There are people that will not even know that there is a law that exists. They will just be excited on TikTok, continuing politicking and airing their views. And insulting if they want to, because they feel they are not being taken care of well. So when you say government wanting to go that route to curtail people on social media, then you know that it has abandoned its obligation. This government must wake up. The state must help this government do the right thing that needs to be done. Yeah.
Thank you very much for that answer. Moving forward, we have seen political alliances emerging in Zambia. Well, I've been curious lately, you know. I'm sure I'm not alone. A lot of people out there have been wondering, are these alliances able to defeat the ruling government?
You see, sometimes people don't want the truth. It's possible that these alliances can defeat the ruling government, okay? But the issues are, what is the motivation for the alliances that are being formed? If the motivation is to defeat the government that people feel has failed them, what are the real motives of individuals that are joining hands together as alliances? For me, I believe that alliances are good and they can help defeat this regime. But when I look at the motives of most people that are joining alliances, the motives are to just become president. That's why when they join alliances, they are joining with a view that I should be the presidential candidate of the alliance. As a consequence, you are seeing alliances breaking every day. Look at what is happening to UCA. UCA is an alliance that was formed. When it was formed, a hand was extended to Patriotic Front, and President Lungu himself attended the day it was being announced. I was in that press conference myself, and the moment UCA was announced, it was endorsed by all of us. Immediately it was endorsed by the president, he was also part of the UCA, President Lungu. Some of us who ran certain pages went and changed the names and made them UCA pages, meaning that we contributed to the rise of UCA influence. Within 24 hours. UCA started making an impact that threatened the regime. The regime realized that it was not about Patriotic Front, but the determined mind of the Zambian people to follow the person they think can deliver better, picking from where he left. So when they realized that Lungu had carried the influence to UCA, and UCA was giving them headaches, what did they do? They started fighting it indirectly. When we noticed that some of the UCA members were being disrespectful to President Lungu, we began to raise concerns. We raised concerns that were vital, but sometimes these groupings, we have a problem in this country. We are more concerned about names rather than substance. So you have a name that is devoid of substance, making noise and being fronted in every fora and platforms. Even when you pay attention, you realize that there's no substance in these individuals that are being
famous.
Just about the name. They have made a name at some point, or they have formed a political party. They are a president. I don't want to just be called a president of a political party. I think if I must take a stance in life to vie for presidency or to form a political party, I should be a formidable force. That should be to contribute to the well-being of the country as an opposition leader. But when you look at what happened in UCA, a lot of people began to scheme. They forgot that the influence that UCA had to do with a patriotic membership that moved with their president to say now UCA is a direction. But UCA was fought, and we decided to say, I think the Patriotic Front is not being respected. Maybe we should move. Those that were objective went and formed the Tonse Alliance. When Tonse Alliance was formed, people received it because the person that they respected moved and went to Tonse. The regime became uncomfortable as well. You've seen that there has been a lot of cosmetic issues going on around this alliance because the regime has known that even if they hold on to the papers of Patriotic Front and giving their surrogates powers to be president of that political party, they have been defeated because the leadership of Patriotic Front and its members are tactical. They are able to look at what is ahead, what the regime is thinking. The regime is predictable that we have today. So always they are finding themselves in an awkward position when they try to fix PF in this manner, this alliance, they come up with something. So now, the alliances that we have today is UCA and the Tonse Alliance. UCA is already broken because the other people are firing each other. They are expelling each other. Comrade Sakwiba has expelled Comrade Savoy.
There's a
Comrade
lot of
Savoy has also
confusion.
expelled the Honorable Sakwiba, saying that he has only 4 members across the country, and there is that exchange. And that is what the regime is feeling very comfortable about. But they have something coming. Tonse is there to stay. Whatever happens, they will be defeated. These alliances are okay, but I pray and hope that those joining the alliances are joining to contribute to that which is meant to unseat this criminal regime, which is not taking care of the people. But if their preoccupation is to be made a president of that alliance, then they are mistaken, and then we will have a problem going forward.
Wow, you're right about some of the things that you're saying. There's an ongoing voter registration and NRCs in Zambia in preparation to the 2026 elections. The procedures, what do you say about the procedures? Are they disseminating the information to the public? Is the procedure okay for you? And I don't know, how do you look at this voter registration and NRCs?
First of all, I have a problem with one thing. This regime is making registration of NRC tied to elections. That is wrong. Registration of NRC, it's a right of every citizen who reaches the age where they need to get an NRC, because that NRC makes them citizens of Zambia. That NRC makes them access services that are provided for by the government or other institutions. You need an NRC to get a bank account. You need an NRC to enter the colleges and get registered. You need an NRC for a number of things. So because this regime is coming up with Mingalato to try and win elections by default.
What Mingalato does?
If you look at when they started registering these NRCs and voter registration in their strongholds, they started quietly and material was being sent there. In other areas, there's a lot of stories. Either the machine is not okay or the person that's supposed to be doing this is not there. That is very wrong. That is recipe for anarchy. Why am I saying that? First of all, I have a problem with our parliamentarians. And I have a problem with the state itself, not the government. The government is just a political entity run by an elected official. But the state has the powers. The powers the government uses is that of the state. So I have a problem with the state itself. First of all, the parliamentarians must ask themselves, if ECZ says we want to register 3 million voters, how many of those voters should be registered per province? That should be the first step. If they are targeting 4 million, they should say, we want to register 4 million voters in the 2026 general elections. And by ratio, they must split that 4 million per province. And they must hold ECZ accountable and the registrar of NRCs to ensure that no one leaves a province before that target is met. Why would you want to do that? Because we want a president that will be voted across the country. Okay? You want a president that will be voted across the country. What is going on is very unfortunate. What is going on is that you can have that 4 million, ECZ wants to have 4 million voters across the country for 2026 general elections, and the same ECZ will still be comfortable that 2 or 1 province should make that 4 million. Either the provinces have to ferry people from Copper Belt to go and register in Luapula, and then the same go and register in Eastern Province, so that the next president will be a president voted by only Copper Belt Province, but the individuals that are from Copper Belt went and registered elsewhere. That is wrong. That is a big problem. What must happen is that registration of NRC is mandatory for all those that reaches the age where they need to get NRCs. And it must not be tied to elections. Every year, we have grade 12s that finishes school. They need to go into colleges. So we have a lot of people every year that needs those NRCs. It must be a continuous process, and they should sensitize the youths why they need to get those NRCs. When it comes to voter registration, we need a situation where we must hold those that are registering voters accountable, ECZ, to say, if you are going to say you are registering 1 million votes in Central Province, and you set a target, you give 45 days. If that 45 days, the 1 million voters are not met, the target of 1 million is not met in Central Province, you have to extend until 1 million is met. If that is going to happen, we will have free and fair elections. But if we are going to have a situation where these mingalatos of having one particular area are registering so many people, and you say you have a target like this, then we are zombies.
How are you going to stop that from happening as an opposition party?
This is why I say some of the people that are aspiring to rule this country are jokers. They are going to radio, from one radio station, one television station, every day, every now and then. They are speaking about that aspect cosmetically. What must happen is ECZ. We must compel ECZ to tell us the target they want to have for 2026 general elections of voters. Then they must tell us how many per province have they spread that number. What ratio are they using? Is it the census or something else? When they have done that, it will be very easy that the target they are setting or the days they are giving will not be enough if those targets are not met. That is what must happen. But it's like you are busy, I'm talking, calling this government a failed government and wanting things to change. It will not happen by any other ways and means except the ballot. And anybody to cast that vote needs to have a voter registration card and the NRC. That is what must be happening. I know that in Luapula, friends are reporting that at some instances, they are being told that the machine is not okay. You come the other day, the machine is not okay. In Muchinga, that is the same case, and other parts of the country. So for me, that we are not paying attention. And if we are paying attention, we are not doing that which needs to be done. We need to hold ECZ accountable to tell us how much is the target per province. Are they going to say they will not leave a province until the target is met? That is the right thing to do. That is the most important thing we must push for now.
Okay, just adding on to that, I think in some areas like 10 miles, I think though the registration has not started yet. I think the government needs to indeed look into that.
The government cannot. The government cannot. It works for them. When you talk about the government, you're talking about the UPND government. If it works for them that voter registration delays where they are not strong, and it's possible it's going to delay because Lusaka and Copper Belt will give them hell, and the president must know that. So if they are aware, they know why they must delay or why they must put up some spanners to ensure that that doesn't happen. It's not only in 6-10 miles. Everywhere, it's not happening as it has been happening elsewhere. And that is a problem that I think we need to deal with, because we can as well just stop politicking, because at the end of the day, these guys are going to emerge victorious. Because the people that wants to remove them will have no voter's card. The people that wants to keep them are the ones that is going to have that are going to have those voters' card to vote in the next general elections. You know, when you look at the elections that we had in 2011 and 2021 elections, we saw that it was difficult for any manipulation to happen. If the 2021 elections were manipulated by the opposition to be in power today, there is cause to that. There is evidence to suggest that. When you analyze the 2021 elections and you analyze the 2011 elections, you will see something consistent. Patriotic Front was losing elections in deep villages of our country where they did not have candidates as parliamentarians and the local councillors, local authority to represent them. So now, prior to 2011, the strategies sat, tactical strategies sat, where it was suggested that the reason why we are losing elections across the country in some deep villages is because we do not have candidates that stand in certain constituencies and wards. So 2011 was supposed to be different. We are now Patriotic Front, with support from the likes of GBM. They said, let's look at the constituencies, 156 constituencies. Let's field in candidates in all these constituencies, as well as the councils, so that those MPs in Shangombo, as they are monitoring their own elections, they are monitoring the presidential election. Okay? So now, how did that work? It worked to the extent that in areas where PF was losing elections every time elections were held, like Shangombo, the time we were going to an election in 2011, SATA was declared the winner, while the Shangombo, which always was used by MMD to win elections, was still voting. But the numbers by which MMD was beaten were too massive that even in those constituencies that were still registering to vote, imagine votes are being counted. You are supposed to end voting at 18 hours. 18 hours, you close voting and you start counting. And you are announcing elections of the winners in areas they are still voting. But at the end of the day, we in the towns, in the cosmopolitan towns, beat MMD so much that even in those polling stations of those areas that were still voting while they were counting, if they voted for MMD, they were not going to match up to the difference that they were being beaten. And SATA was declared the winner. We came into 2021. If you analyze the 2021 election results, you will know why this government is panicking, why it is packing, and why they are where they are going, and they have to do whatever that is necessary.
What makes you think it's panicking, the government is panicking? Because they're the ones in
I'm
power.
sure by now, after the census report, they are aware now that Zambians are aware of what transpired in their strongholds. Because apart from the videos that we see where people are touching votes in those boxes, we now have the census report, where now sample words are given where the registered voters in a particular ward, let's say for instance, polling station, let's say the registered voters in that particular ward, polling station, are 800. And then the winner, who is President HH, gets 2,500. Where has that number come from? President Lungu gets 15. President HH gets 2,400, 2,200. Yet the registration in that particular polling station is 800. So where did the other number come from? The other number figures come from? That is a scenario that happened in 2021. That is unlikely to happen. The reason why that is unlikely to happen is that those who are meant to observe and protect the vote, like the police officers and every other person, they will not do that this time around.
Why?
Because at that time, people's lives were said not to be okay because the economy was bad and everything else. But this time around, people have seen that actually things were better then and than now. And everywhere across the country, history will tell you that the police officers do not vote for the government of the day. They have never voted for the government of the day. They can be misused. They can be used to brutalize people. But when it comes to elections, they know how to vote. Anybody that is salaried, any person that is salaried, who gets a salary, is affected more than hustlers that are running around to find what to do, because they are running around, they don't have time limit. But our civil servants have time limit. They have to be in offices for 30 days. Every day, their salaries are being cut almost in half now by the increase in cost of essential.
Why is that so? Because a lot of people have been wondering why most of the civil servants are getting paid half, especially from the ZESCO department.
It is because the cost, the cut I'm talking about is where this month you buy things 5% more expensive. That means the 5% is off your salary that particular month. The next month, things have gone up that you bought previously have gone up by 10% more. It means your salary is going down. Now, under Patriotic Front, a lot of civil servants were doing side hustles. This time around, it's not possible. So the people that are more affected in this country are the civil servants. And every worker that has got 30 days to go for work and 8 hours to be in offices, they are affected. So the coming elections will be decided by those that are feeling the real pain within them. Before we talk about the common people that are marketeers and all these people are doing what they're doing, we have to talk about the people that are more affected, who are expecting a fixed salary that has not been increased. When you increase the salary of a person by 500, and then you increase a bag of meal up to 400 when it was 120, when that 500 increment wasn't there, that is literally nothing. I'll give you a practical example. A person that is going to move from Charleston to town is paying about 18 to 21 kwacha to town and back, that's 40 kwacha. If you multiply 40 kwacha by 5, it's giving you 200. If you multiply 200 by 4 weeks, it's giving you 800. That is just an estimate. So from a salary, somebody is getting 800 off just for transport, because transport has gone up. So the issues that are there are real. And this government is not going to outmaneuver anybody to do that which is wrong. We are asking them now to do the right thing, so that come 2026, when the votes are cast, we will send Mr. Ichilema in opposition with respect and dignity. For a record, this country has never had a situation where somebody loses election and they refuse to hand over power. We will not see that happening even in 2026. It has never happened. No, our confidence is drawn from the things we are able to analyze, not from anything else. We are able to analyze this government. It's a government of square pegs in round holes. They are incompetent to the core. They have no iota of shame. They cannot even listen to this criticism that we are giving them. They are preoccupied to intimidate and threaten. But there are people you can't threaten. People will just tell you the truth you can't threaten. They have got a cause to motherland. They have been given the instrument of power. They have been given the mandate. They promised what they were going to do. If I were them, I will not make such promises that were so simplistic. To just say, I'll get minimum from 120, 140 to 50 kwacha, fuel from 17 kwacha to 5 kwacha. If I was to make that promise in the minimum, I think I will hide my greed somewhere. Maybe I will say, we will try by all means to ensure that the minimum will not be very expensive, or very cheap. Maybe we can bring it somewhere in the middle, or if it's going to increase just a little bit, maybe I would have found a way of saying it. But the promises that President Hichilema made were so simplistic, as if he's not an economist. So now he's facing the consequences of his action. He's irritated by the reminding that the youths are doing on social media on what was doing. That's why he wants to curtail them.
Only economists can understand the hardship of, the growth of the economy in Zambia. What do you have to say about that?
I understand that the minister who was alleged to have said that has come in the open to say he was misquoted. But even if he was misquoted, that is okay. That is respectful for him to come out and say, I was misquoted. That was taken out of context. But looking at the previous statements that have been made by a number of people within this regime, you can still say that they are basking in fake assurances they are giving to themselves. It is the Zambian people who must tell you that you have done well here and you are going to get a mandate from another mandate from us. Not you telling yourself that you are going to win because you have achieved so much. No, it is me, Hardliner, that must tell them to say, under PF, load shedding was 12 hours. Under your regime, it's 3 hours. But if I'm going to say under PF, load shedding was reduced to 2 hours or so, to nothing at all. And then their load shedding is going, some people are going 2 days without electricity. Sometimes the whole 24 hours without electricity, it comes at midnight and it goes by 04 before you wake up. So how are they going to tell the Zambian people to give them a mandate. President Hichilema said, people are starving because the civil servant, when they buy things at a month end, they buy in bulk, put their tomatoes in the fridges. And because of load shedding, these things are getting bad. So life is becoming expensive for them. They can no longer stock food in their fridges. So now they have to depend on buying. That was his statement every day on radio and TV, and records are there. And the youths are picking that and playing it on TikTok. He said it. So how many people today are suffering because of load shedding that goes for 2 days? Too many of them. He called his friends incompetent because they did not think outside the reins. They said, we have a rainfall pattern that is not favoring for us to continue generating power at that particular dam we have in Kariba. Hichilema said, in Dubai, they don't have the rains. He was saying at Tuntinti, the rains that they have in Dubai, but because they have got the brains, they have 24-hour electricity. He is now president. 4 years down the line, we have seen the hardships never seen before in this country. So for me, the confidence I have is that the things that he said he was going to do, he has not done them. I've seen the report where Jito was saying that they have achieved 90% of what they promised. But if I count 9 or 10, those promises I can remember, none of them is achieved. So where are the 90% of what they promised they have achieved? Number one, electricity was the tariffs would reduce, load shedding would be up almost zero. That's 2. Number 3, minimum was going to be at 50 kwacha from 140. Dollar was going to be 10 kwacha within 4 hours of him being sworn in. Then petrol was going to be around 10 kwacha. That's 5. Fertilizer, he was going to give the farmers 8 bags instead of the 6 that the PF was giving. He's been giving them medals. On foreign trips, he said he was not going to travel as much as Lungu was traveling because he was wasting money. He has traveled more than any president. All the presidents we've had put together, he has beaten them in 4 years. So there is nothing that they can say 90% of what he promised has been achieved. So those are lies, and those lies will cost them in 13 months from now.
They say that they have been unable to achieve certain things because the PF government overborrowed. You are the cause of this problem.
We have dealt with that matter before, I think here, but you can still go back to it and do a recap.
True.
The PF overborrowed, still not to the extent that they could not borrow to correct things. They have borrowed more than the PF borrowed in 7 years, in 10 years. Them in 4 years have borrowed more than PF. It is under their regime that the Americans have cut the funding due to criminalities. It is under their regime that America has wondered why they are giving them $8 billion and the economy is not growing. I find that those assertions to be very funny and cheap. Why? Because, first of all, the Americans know very well that the money they were giving the UPND was going into salaries of teachers and health personnel. It was going for consumption. So how do you expect the economy to grow? So the issue of saying the PF overborrowed, yes, the PF overborrowed and built infrastructure. Infrastructure that the UPND has benefited. A few days ago, it is yesterday, the President of the Republic of Zambia, our President, Mr. Hichilema, was commissioning a dam in Kafulafuta. That was started by the Patriotic Front, and the Patriotic Front funded that project. Sourced for funds for that project, $450 million. President Lungu is the one that did the groundbreaking in that particular territory. And President Hichilema went there to commission that dam. But when you go to social media, you find that everyone in the opposition are praising the incumbent. Yes, government projects are inherited. But what is important and what is mature and responsible is to give credit where it is due. Others are even joking to say, who should you praise? The man that impregnated the woman and she gives birth and the man that comes and takes over the woman and they name the child. Between the two, who really is the owner of that child? The one who impregnated and the one who named the child?
I can't answer you that one.
I know why you can't answer, because you are a woman, but I'll tell you to say, the one that impregnated that person, that is the owner of that child. So yes, President Lungu started groundbreaking and everything, the funds were found, and it was pumped into that project, and President Hichilema has signed this signature that he opened that part of the project. So what PF borrowed went into infrastructure development, which the UPND has benefited from. The 30,000 teachers they recruited, because money was borrowed, schools were built. The 11,000 health personnel that they recruited is because money was borrowed and hospitals were built and clinics and others were upgraded, and they recruited those people. The question is, what have they done with the money they have borrowed? Almost the same amount that PF borrowed. What have they done with it? They will sing to your ears because they think we are really gullible and tell you CDF. So what project are you going to point out, apart from the desks that are being made to fill the classrooms that were built by Patriotic Front? What is it that you are going to talk about under CDF that can see this economy grow for the American ambassador to see the growth with the money that they are giving them? There is literally nothing. I believe that if President Hichilema and this government were competent enough, they were going to be in power for a very long time. Why? Because the time they were forming government, essential commodities were in full supply. What wasn't there is that a number of people were unemployed, so they were starving. No wonder he promised for employment, that you create more employment. So it was going to be easy if he borrowed money and he came up with industries, and borrowed money created more industries and manufacturing companies, so that people can have incomes to be able to survive, like he said. It was going to be easy because he needed not to waste time on doing things that were already in place. Like he didn't need to build schools. He didn't need to build hospitals. He didn't need to build airports. Those airports have been built because money was borrowed. There was a reason why those airports were built. We are a landlocked country. As a landlocked country, there are some things that we'll have to do in these neighboring nations like Tanzania and South Africa who are on the seacoast. But there are things that could be done if we allowed more cargo planes to land on our soil. That is why the country decided to go and build those airports. Ndola Airport was started from the scratch. This airport, KK Airport, you can say it was improved, but still, when you go there, you will know what has been done. But when you go to Ndola, it was started from the scratch. That is borrowed money. That is that which went there. So where have they taken their monies? Because there's evidence that the ambassador of America said, these guys have borrowed too much money and the country is not improving. The American ambassador has gone further to tell us about the Guagu issues, this Tuliemo arrangement on the maize. You know? Mm-hmm. So that tells you to say the excuse of blaming PF is not holding water. Is it PF that bought expensive maize in Tanzania? It is the UPND government under President Hichilema, a farmer who assured the country that I'm a farmer, I will not let you down. Is it under PF that the donor head has been cut because civil servants are stealing the drugs given for free, subjecting people to unnecessary death and selling them on the street? It is under UPND, under President Hichilema, a very competent man, he claimed, who said he was going to prioritize health care. That is when that donor fund has been cut. What else is he going to point at PF? Nothing. Nothing is going to happen. And I'm very surprised that he has still continued to enjoy being massaged by the praise singers who are praising him because they have got an income they never had. So they have to continue coming up with books, because it's easy to write a book and you go to print, you have the money, and say, oh, this is a report, 90% of what we promised has been achieved. And even get it as a president, and even sit in your chair, lay back and get popcorn that can do it, I've done something. That is very unfortunate for this country then. If the president is comfortable that those lies that are being put in that report makes sense, then that's unfortunate for this country. I have the manifesto for the Patriotic Front. We'll look at it some other time, where you look at the things they promised, they did, and the things they intended to do should they have won the elections in 2021. Probably what they will do in 2026 as we come back to power.
Well, thank you very much for coming through. You know, time is always jealous with us. We've got only an hour plus minutes. So we'll be wrapping up for today. Thank you very much for tuning in to our podcast. You know, I'm sure we've been getting your comments, the feedback. It's overwhelming. Thank you very much. Keep on commenting and tune in every 20 hours on the DOT. Thank you very much for watching. Have a blessed night. Good night.